I want to tell you a little story about my Smoke and Mirrors album over here. This is the first solo album I ever recorded, and Nikki and I remember we were traveling, we were going through Alabama to Mississippi, and we were thinking, you know, what would really tell the story of, you know, cigar box guitars and roots instruments? That was our goal with the Smoke and Mirrors album, is to some way encapsulate like what we feel and what we know about these instruments. And so we decided to do a double album. And the first disc is all modern instruments like Cadillac guitars, these electric cigar box guitars, things like that. The second disc is all pre-World War II cigar box guitars. Even the strings I used, even the slide I used was pre-World War II, or at least things that would have been around pre-World War II. And we recorded the whole album with the at Sun Studio and with the engineers from Sun Studio. But since Sun Studio wasn't around pre-World War II, we had to go down to the Mississippi Delta for the second disc and record in an old sharecropper shack. And so we really wanted to get the vibe, the air even, that would have been around back then. And one of the places I always wanted to find, and we ended up recording 4 songs there, was the Mississippi Crossroads. And you're thinking, well, how did you find the Mississippi Crossroads?
What about Cash Studio?
So we checked with everyone we knew to see if anyone knew where it was, and we ended up getting these old handwritten directions from an old voodoo practitioner on Beale Street, who's passed away, but his directions were still around, and we followed them. And the only day we could actually get everyone scheduled together to go do this field recording just happened to be on New Year's Eve. So I recorded 4 songs there at the Crossroads at New Year's Eve at midnight. And this is the story of that recording. So you heard the story of Robert Johnson selling his soul to the devil at the Crossroads. That's how we learned all those cool blues riffs. That makes sense. But we wanted to know the real story behind it, and if there was any truth to that location after we recorded. So we went back to seek out the grandson of the voodoo practitioner who wrote the directions, and he said, "Oh, I know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah, that is the real Crossroads, and I'll tell you why." And he said, if you were a blues musician back in the early 1900s, whether you lived in the Mississippi Delta, New Orleans, St. Louis, Chicago, basically any of the blues cities, which all just happen to be off of rivers, because that's where you can get to from the Mississippi Delta. But if you wanted to play those juke joints down in the Mississippi, you'd have to first hop on one of those river boats. You have to be real smooth. You'd have to not be found. You go in with the cargo, and then you hop off, and then you want to hop on one of those trains that goes deep into the heart of the Mississippi Delta. You got your guitar there with you. You hide in that train somewhere, hope the engineer doesn't find you. And then once that train starts kicking in, you hear something like this. Maybe you pull your guitar out and start playing along. Start feeling it move? Yeah, now you know you're safe. You pull that guitar out, you play as loud as you want. You're in the clear now. Hear that whistle blow? Starts picking up a little steam. You know, when you're riding on a train, you hear that locomotive, and you can't play anything else. You just have to play to the rhythm of the train, because it's louder you know, making progress, getting some miles down there. But then you start thinking, wait a second. Oh no. Then I gotta get off this train and there's gonna be people at that station looking for me. And I wanna learn blues from the train. I don't wanna learn blues from the field songs. You know, I don't wanna learn from the chain gang. I wanna learn from the juke joints. Big distinction there. And so they start thinking, well, I gotta wait until there's a nice sharp curve in this railroad track because the train's gotta slow down nice and slow for that curve. And that's when I'm gonna jump off with my hat and my guitar and I'm gonna make a run for it.
Thank you very much.
And that's when I come back to my story. That's what that grandson of that voodoo practitioner told me. He said, well, those Crossroads you played at, they were on this plantation down there in Mississippi. And right next to those crossroads, there was a real sharp curve in that railroad track. And so all of those blues musicians who hitched rides to the Mississippi Delta to play in those juke joints and make a name for themselves, they'd hop off that train at that sharp curve of that railroad track and they'd throw their thumbs up at that crossroads and start hitching rides to town. And so people started talking, you know, they'd pick this guy up, he'd be a great guitar player at those crossroads, pick a great harmonica player up at those crossroads. And they all seemed to play just like the train. And so rumors started getting around. They must be selling their souls to the devil or something out there. Really, it was just basically the best way to get to those juke joints in the Mississippi Delta. I think the truth is probably somewhere in between. There's really only one way to find out. And you don't have to go down to the crossroads to find out. Because I did it for you. So all you have to do is buy the album right over there, Smoke and Mirrors, double disc album, 2 CDs, 22 songs, 48 pages of booklets. That'll tell you all about it. You've basically been to the crossroads. Thank you.